What's up everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today we're going to be looking at progression in Gotham Knights. The last time I made a video about this, it was probably a number of months ago, at least a year, when we first talked about this particular discussion as to how this game is going to span in its progression and what we could expect as gamers or players who are looking forward to the game. So it brings me back to this DC Fandom event gameplay and narrative that was actually put together by the team that they showed the whole world who was watching the DC Fandom event anyways. I remember Patrick Redding mentioning something about Batgirl being about a dozen or so hours into her progression and about halfway through the Mr. Freeze storyline. So this already gave us some kind of a number where at least you'll be playing this character for a little bit past a dozen hours. So thinking about that, I want to make a guess, an educated guess based on the way many video games are actually developed. And that is, I think you'll at least play one character's progression for somewhere about 20 to 22 hours, depending on your own prowess and the way you play the game. Now, maybe somebody might be able to do it in a faster amount of time, but I think when you go ahead and look at the possible amount of progression and the way the developers have been mentioning that Gotham Knights feels like 4 games in one, you can almost safely take that hour count and multiply it by 4 to get somewhere around what you would consider a standard progression in a video game if you were to maybe run through the story without actually doing so many side missions or side quests or looking for collectibles and so on and so forth. So if we were to say, okay, maybe on the most conservative end, Batgirl will play for about 20 hours, then we can say the entire game could give us about 80 base hours of gameplay for the entire cast of characters. Now, please keep in mind that this is quite hypothetical. I'm not making any statements of any kind of certainty. I'm just going with the math from somewhere that we got a specific number in 2020, and then I'm just tacking on 8 more hours to that, multiplying it by 4, so that we can get some sort of a picture as to how the game is going to progress. Now, if you were to add other things like collectibles, add other things like side quests, side missions, maybe leveling up the character to be 100% powerful by pretty much unlocking all of their abilities and their trees, then we're starting to see a lot more gameplay time and a lot more ability and replayability and longevity being put into this entire package. Now, here are some of the upsides to that. Before we even jump into all of this, though, we really have to go back and say what went on before Gotham Knights even got its production. And the reason I'm bringing this question up, not like you don't really know the answer, but is the fact that just recently Patrick Redding was asked a question regarding Gotham Knights where they asked him about, Batman and the Arkham games and all at a comicbook.com interview. And he made a statement in the beginning of answering that question. He said, when we received the mandate to make a game in the Batman universe surrounding Gotham City, and then he went on and on and on. But what caught my ear more than anything was when we received the mandate. And to me, that kind of confirmed some of my suspicions that most times developers and heads of studios will get a mandate from their top brass or from management up top to make a game with some specifics. Not saying that Warner Brothers told them, hey, you guys have to make a Gotham Knights game surrounding all of the 4 Knights, but looking at the cancellation of their Damian Wayne game and even the rumored cancellation of their Suicide Squad game, I think it makes a whole lot of sense that those games were canceled and Warner Brothers probably wanted a game that had some specifics to it, and this is what they came up with. So in coming up with this package, which is basically a 4-character package, I think this is what it is that we got in order for them to possibly meet some of the requirements or criteria of a game that would have a lot of longevity, a game that will have a lot of playtime. And let's not forget, when they were hiring the community manager for this game, they actually put in a job description, and I wish I could show you a screenshot of that they wanted somebody who would be able to reach out to the community of gamers and keep people excited to logging into the game daily. So it appears to me that with all of the plethora of aspects of the game in terms of multiple characters, multiple quest lines, multiple story progression tweaks and changes and differences, that they will probably be adding maybe daily activities for side quests and things that people could be doing to make the game continue with some level of longevity, which in my opinion, I feel is somewhat acceptable. And this video is more than likely something that I should have made a long time ago, but shout out to the community here, because just in the comment section, some of our audience members were having this conversation about, if the game feels like a 4 game in one package, isn't it going to be something where, if Batgirl maybe meets one enemy NPC or one encounter, is her cutscene going to be very similar to the cutscenes of, say, maybe Robin or Nightwing or Red Hood? And that's a very valid question. I think there'll probably be some overlap where it will be the same, but the developers have actually confirmed that there will be some similarities and some significant differences. In fact, the cinematic director was actually quoted saying that they actually tried their best to make sure that the cinematics could vary in some places, and they actually had some camera cuts and they had some differences to just make each character outstanding in their own way, so that it didn't feel monotonous, like you were using one skeleton to do everything and just putting a skin of the character and a voiceover to make it seem like it's just them that's doing it. So I look forward to this as being at least something that provides a little bit of variety, something that whoever is playing the game doesn't really feel bored when they're reaching the same point in, say, maybe they're playing their third night and then they're like, oh, here we go again. This is where he tells him this same thing. Maybe the dialogue might differ. Maybe the encounter might differ. Maybe it might be a situation where, Nightwing, and if you remember, he's listening to, Penguin, who's telling him something about the Court of Owls. But then in the case of Red Hood, maybe Red Hood's not having it. And, maybe Penguin is in a chokehold while he's trying to tell him about the Court of Owls. It could be something that provides that dynamic aspect where everyone is sharing their experiences and saying this is pretty much how things are going to go. But judging by the fact that we've waited for a video game from either Rocksteady or Warner Bros. Games Montreal for at least 8 years, I consider it somewhat of an acceptable premise, or at least a place where I can compromise and say, if they give me 80 hours of game that I can choose to or not play, then I think it's fine with me. Because at the end of the day, no one is forcing me to play as all the 4 nights, and no one is forcing me to play as all the 4 nights in maybe a week or 2 weeks. I know someone's going to grind all 4 of them and have all their endings and have all of their different cutscenes available, but the regular gamer that's going to be taking their time is going to savor an 80-hour experience for a number of months, and even for some people, at least about a year. Some people really do take their time. They don't run around, they don't rush. They have a very limited amount of time to play the game, and they're going to make sure that they enjoy every single minute of that experience. The one thing I would like to see, nonetheless, is if we're going to be having these 4 characters approach the game in their own unique way, it would be nice for the game to have something that makes it stand out from a story perspective in relation to the villains that they encounter. Now, I understand, I get it. That's probably asking for a more complex package than maybe is realistic, because even I myself, I've argued that Gotham Knights is a very ambitious game. In fact, the cinematic director, I think I really enjoyed listening to him, and his name is Wilson Mew, if you are wondering who he is, and if you're trying to look him up and look up his interviews. And he said something about the game being very ambitious and talking about just all the work and effort it took to be able to adapt the game to 4 very unique characters. I strongly believe that maybe having a little twist to each character, having to encounter something that is unique to them, according to maybe, say, the villains or the rogue gallery, will really provide a little bit of depth. But how far they can go with this, I don't know. But in moving the game to the new generation of video games, it might not necessarily be far-fetched for them to be able to put that unique spin for each different night. But if at any rate, every night encounters the same incidents but approaches it in a different way, and that's all they're able to provide, as long as they do it very well, to me, I think it's actually a better premise than trying to overdo it and then maybe breaking the game or delaying the game. So far, so good. If we go back and ask ourselves to that same question to try to answer and say, how long is it going to take to beat Gotham Knights? Then I think we're looking at a very solid game that's going to run the community a good number of hours, a good number of fun, a good number of an experience where people can basically talk about everything. And even the added layer of the co-op right now is looking much more favorable to me. At first, I wasn't necessarily a big fan, but if you and someone else could play maybe as 2 different characters, or maybe as the same character, and they have some surprises for you in the cutscenes, then that's actually going to be a lot of fun to explore. And I'm certain a lot of people will probably be trying all kinds of fun stuff to say, okay, what if both of us run Nightwing and we both encounter this incident? What's there for us? What's there hiding? What kind of cookie crumbs are they going to leave there for us? So that's something that I feel in the community we probably need to keep looking forward to, at least asking more questions about, in order for us to get maybe some clarity, and then by release, we get a better picture as to how this is going to play out. Thanks for watching the video. I really do appreciate you guys so much. If you are still yet to join the Video Game Fight School community, what are you waiting for? You can hit the subscribe button, you can like the video, or you can leave a comment, and hopefully we'll talk very soon in another one. Peace out.